So we're at that moment that lots of people have been waiting for. I'm guessing you have as well, Pisces. Pisces ascendant even. This is your forecast for the week ahead from Monday the 8th of December right the way through to the 14th. That's Sunday the 14th of December 2025. But this is the week when one of your ruling planets goes direct. And that would be Neptune. Neptune's been retrograde since the 4th of July. So this is absolutely something that you can celebrate. Yeah, this is going to be a great week. Things should start to get clearer quite quickly. Now, one of the things with Neptune is Neptune creates a sort of like fogginess about things, so things that they're not so clear, things get a little bit confusing. It's really difficult to see what's going on. So yeah, I think things are going to get much better from here on in. Very, very helpful, right? Now, what have we got in this week ahead? So the moon's going to go from Cancer, right the way through to Libra. There's some other things also going on in this week ahead. We've got the last Mercury Uranus opposition, which is going to be fantastic. That's also going to help things get clearer. We've also got Mercury in a lovely trine to Neptune. This is going to be the last trine to Neptune from Mercury in the sign of Pisces. And so Mercury and Neptune are coming into a time of a new relationship together. So I love that. That's really going to be really fantastic. So yeah, it's going to be quite a clarifying week ahead. I also think there's going to be a sense of revelation, because on the day of the last opposition between Mercury and Uranus, that's also the day when Neptune goes direct. So things are really hinging on Wednesday the 10th. Anyway, if you're new to this channel, by the way, my name's Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. As ever, I'm just going to bring up my slides. These keep me on track, by the way. There really is a purpose to me using slides. I don't just do it for shits and giggles. But anyway, thank you before I get going to all the people that support my channel in all the various ways that you do. You make all of this possible, and I'm really grateful to you. Anyway, here are the two charts I've got. Now, this is obviously for Pisces ascendant. If when you look at your chart, this wedge here that I'm emphasizing with my with the power of my mouse, this is the first house. If when you look in your first house, you see the symbol for Pisces, but also the symbol for Aries, then it's also important to listen to Aries as well, because you've also got Aries in your first house. And so we're really talking about things from your first house position. Anyway, this is the first chart, and you'll see that the moon, as we're going into Monday the 8th, the moon is right at the tail end of Cancer. And then by the end of the week, it's going to be coming towards the end of Libra. So the moon's going to be going all the way through these parts of the chart. This is very outward facing, I would say, like this is your day to day when the moon goes into Leo. Then, during this time when the moon goes into Virgo, there's going to be a load of relationship stuff. And that actually doesn't stop when the moon goes into Libra, because I consider the 8th house to have so much to do with relationships. It's unreal. So let's go back to this first chart and pace through this. So just, FYI, I'm sure you know this already, Neptune and Jupiter are your ruling planets if you've got Pisces as your ascendant. Now, what I really like about this, and this has been so for quite a while, and it's going to, carry on, it's going to continue for some time yet. But Neptune and Jupiter in a trine, I think, is really helpful for all Pisces or people with a very strong Pisces energy. I've got my moon in Pisces and my Jupiter in Pisces. It's really helpful. This is really standing for the Pisces energy and allowing you to come to terms with all of your beautiful gifts, your intuition, that real sort of like darling side of you, I think, is beautifully expressed because of Neptune and Jupiter working so beautifully right now. So that's a real big like thumbs up as we start this week ahead. Now, so Monday the 8th, the moon goes into Leo pretty early on. And then, the moon's going to be in your 6th house. And this is a time when you might feel a little bit more emotional about all the different things you're doing. You can feel a little bit overworked, a little bit tired, a little bit grumpy. because, you know, you're in the flow of everything that you need to do. Now, this is also a place, the sixth house is also not just about all the things that you've got to do, but also things like your health, your physical health, you know, like, so your diet, your exercise routine, everything that you do that helps you keep ahead of yourself is a real sort of like sixth house phenomenon. And so with the moon coming in here, you might find you get a bit of water attention, because I always think the moon brings the water with it, hence the tides. But you might also find that you get some kind of moon or emotional related things. So if you're the kind of person that gets headaches and you know, like a sort of like an emotional outburst that knocks you out for a few hours, it's good to prepare for that. You know, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if that's one of your tendencies, then it's worth just bearing that one in mind. Now, we've also got during this time when the moon's in the sign of Leo, on the 9th, which is Tuesday the 9th, Mars is going into a square with Saturn. Now, you know, I want you to know that this is when it's exactly in a square. It's actually already been in a square for probably about 4 or 5 days. And he'll persist in this square, you know, for another 4 or 5 days. Beyond that, probably even a bit more. And you'll see at the end of the week, Mars is going into a square with Neptune. It's exactly on the 14th. That's Sunday, the 14th. However, Mars technically is already in this square with Neptune as well. But on the 9th, it's really acute. You'll be really feeling the energies of it. And so it's important to understand this, because right now you've got the Sun, you've got Mars, and you also got Venus in your 10th house, really emphasizing this is a time when you're usually kind of lifted up, feeling pretty great. People notice what you do. People are very appreciative for your efforts, and you seem to kind of glow coming up to this, you know, Christmas time. This tends to be a time when you get a lot of energy. Now, with Mars here at the moment, you're feeling a lot more directive than usual. You're feeling actually quite buoyant to take a risk and to put yourself out there in terms of your career. Now, Mars is coming into this square. Now, this square to do with Saturn and also Neptune, they're both in the first house. And the first house is about you. It's about your body. It's about your personal authority, your feelings of yourself. And so you might feel that there's an impulse or a need to dive right into your career, to do something really strong, to be quite dynamic, to put yourself out there, to be really, really confident, etc. And there's a side of you that's like, no, definitely not. You know, Saturn in the first can be quite correct and can be quite exhausting as well. So you might find that, you know, what's being required of you, or what a part of you is insisting that the other part of you does. You know, I don't know if you're comfortable with the idea of parts. I'm guessing you are, given that, you know, the symbol of the fish, it's two fish going in different directions for Pisces. You know, there is a sort of duality with the Pisces energy. And so you might recognize this as I explain it. But the idea that there might be a part of you that's really pushing yourself forwards, and there's another part of you that's trying to keep you safe. And it's that part of you that's trying to keep you safe. That's the Saturn part in the first house. He's really saying, if you put yourself out there in a really visible way, in a demonstrable way, in quite a pushy way, if you claim your authority and really stand in your authority, it could be dangerous to you. And so you might find that you're coming up against your cautious self. And, you know, I always think what's going on in your first house is likely to overpower what's going in your 10th. And so this is an interesting one. And if you've listened to my December forecast already, you'll know that I'm talking, you know, like Mars is coming into this square. Then later on, over the course of December, the Sun will come into this square, or these squares, then Venus will, and then finally Mercury will. And so, you know, each time this happens, you may well feel this sort of sense of tension coming from yourself. Like, this is really self-sabotage, you could say, even, you know, that and you might find that more cautious part of you is just ready to give you excuses, or maybe even symptoms that help you stay safe. So that's something to watch out for, is where is your body creating symptoms for you so that you don't take action? You know, I know that sounds really dramatic, but I'm sure you'll know exactly what I mean. There's been times when, and I've got quite a strong Pisces energy in my chart and a strong Sagittarius energy in my chart. So I naturally have these two working quite, awkwardly together at times. And so sometimes my experience of life is with this Sagittarius bit, I get really fired up and raring to go. And then the Pisces thing kind of dampens it down. And so it's really important just to see where you're damping yourself down. And so maybe don't take a massive leap forwards in your career, but just break it down into really manageable chunks so that you're not shocking yourself. You're not putting yourself off. You're not creating such a huge change that cautious part of you absolutely puts their foot down and says, definitely not. So like, how can you move forwards so carefully and purposefully and incrementally that your cautious self, who's only trying to keep you alive and safe, so that cautious part of you does not get alerted? So that's your challenge in this week ahead, and actually for the rest of December. And if you can work really well with yourself in that way, just think where you're going to be by the end of this, by the end of December, because Mars and the Sun and Venus, for instance, they're all going to go into these squares for the last time with Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So, this is going to be a very new relationship that these planets have with Mars and Neptune as Mars and Neptune go into Aries. So you're really closing down whatever has come up for you in terms of your success. So it's a pretty big thing, actually. And so, yeah, that's all happening. It's happening all the way through, but in particular, it's very strong on the 8th and the 9th. And so it's kind of funny, really, that, when I was mentioning the moon in the 6th house and how you might get an emotional symptom, that's something to watch out for, that you don't give yourself a sudden stress headache or a sudden bout of IBS because you're nervous about something. So, yeah, just be cautious and and just see it for what it is, and also recognize all the triggers. And then when the moon goes into the sign of Virgo, that's on the 10th. The 10th and the 11th is pretty high octane. So we've got Mercury going into the last opposition to Uranus. There's Mercury there in your 9th house. Uranus is just tucked back into your 3rd house. Now, as these oppositions are going, this is the least pervasive and difficult opposition out of all the different signs. From the 3rd to the 9th, this is about, your belief systems, the ones that are held, that have held you in the local community and in the way that you were raised versus what you now know, and like your new truths. And so there's almost like an empirical battle of knowledge and spirituality that's been going on. But given that the North Node is in your in the sign of Pisces in your 1st house, and that you're pretty cosmic anyway, I'm pretty sure that you're wide awake already, and that that actually it's time that all of that home programming, gets kind of blasted out. So I do think you're ready to have a big clearing in terms of all the knowledge you were like that was fed into you quite purposefully in childhood. And then, on the 10th, Neptune goes direct. So you should stop feeling into doubt. You should start feeling that return of confidence. And it might just come that you don't feel so cold in yourself. Neptune is the god of the oceans, and obviously the god of the oceans in the sign of Pisces. That's pretty cold and pretty damp. And as he goes forwards and heads towards Aries, that he's already facing into the sunrise. So I think you'll start to feel a bit warmer in your body. You'll start to feel a bit drier, a bit more fiery. And then on the 11th, there's a few things that happen. So first of all, Mercury is going to go into an exact trine with Neptune. This is going to be the last movement, I think, between Mercury and Neptune before Neptune changes signs. And this is going to be really quite powerful. Yeah. And so with the moon going through the sign of Virgo in the 7th house, and with you and your clairaudience, your clairsentience all tingling, I think you can have a much better understanding of the people around you if you choose to get close. This could be quite helpful. Speaking of getting close, Venus, being the goddess of love and planet to do with relatedness to other people, she's also in a T-square with the South Node and also the North Node, really showing that right now, whilst you could be concerned about your relationships with everyone else, really, if you're going to feel stressed out about your relationships, it's good to challenge yourself from the perspective of you're developing yourself. So if you are feeling distant from the people around you, it might be because you're developing yourself, and it's okay. And that's the core message to know here, actually, that the flow of relationships is not that smooth always. There are bumps in the road, let's say. And right now, if there is a bump in the road, it's because you're putting your attention onto yourself. And it's not a bad thing at all. This is about you coming into self-knowledge, and coming in, like standing for yourself and not letting yourself be a doormat. It's not to say you have been a doormat, but it's definitely something that comes quite easily with the Pisces ascendant. And also when you've had Saturn and Neptune going through your first house, I mean, that's pretty extreme. You're going to be feeling so much better, I think, from February onwards next year when they've both moved over, in particular after the 20th of February when they come into an exact conjunction at 0 Aries. It's going to feel very, very significant. And then, finally on the 11th, Mercury heads into Sagittarius, and then he's at the top of the chart. And, you're going to be feeling a lot more, again, energized about your career. And again, the message here is don't do too much that you scare the cautious part of you that's keeping you safe. And then Friday the 12th, the moon, let me just move this along. The moon comes into the sign of Libra. And then the 13th, we've got Mercury in a lovely sextile with Pluto, which I think is highly helpful. This is going to be opening up your intuition and linking it into your knowing about your career. I think this is going to be quite helpful. Very insightful. You'll probably have some very strong, penetrating moments there. And then on Sunday the 14th, that's when Mars is exact in the square to Neptune. You might feel your energy just kind of drop out. So you might think, oh no, I'm never going to get things moving. But don't panic. Mars in a square to Neptune can sometimes, the energy just goes it just goes right down. But at the same time, the sun is in a lovely trine with Chiron. And to me, this is just showing you there's no rush to get things done. Absolutely no rush at all. Even if it feels like there's a rush, there's not. The sun and Chiron in a trine is reminding you that everything takes its time. Everything comes into its fruition at just the right space. Like if everything worked out like 10 years ago, or if everything worked out just a month ago, exactly as you thought, you might not have had the boldness. You might not have had the courage. It might have all like worked out, but you suddenly thought, oh my God, it's too much. And so I think these lovely trines that are coming up to Chiron are actually there to remind you that you've built your self-esteem quite well. You've been building it behind the scenes. And actually from the 14th, when the sun goes into the trine with Chiron, there's a real nudge that your persistent, good thoughts and feeling about yourself are going to have some really great results. And so to me, that's the slow build up of your self-esteem. So again, the message here is don't push it. Don't don't bring up that silent critic that's trying to keep you safe. Just slowly acknowledge that you are increasing in confidence and everything is okay. You're exactly where you are right now, and that is okay. So I hope that's helpful to you, Pisces. Sending you loads of love for this week ahead. I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and catch up with you all soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.